Yes,
Hello, everyone.
you're live. Thank you.
Thank you, Latha. Are we recording and streaming at this time?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. If I could also have our agenda up on the screen, please. Thank you. I've confirmed with membership that we do have quorum. So thank you very much, Andrew. As well, I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement. So those who feel comfortable to do so, if I could have you stand, please. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas, of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting this evening. This is our last meeting of 2024. Hoping everybody is getting ready for the holiday season of what they celebrate or time to spend with family. As well, you'll notice that mics are muted. This is done just to help us get through a meeting and keep order. When you are recognized by the chair, you will be unmuted. Okay. As well, to share and remind everybody that we do at PIAC have a code of conduct, and I advise everyone to take a look at that to keep yourself aware of what our code of conduct is, making it a space that we can all engage positively and hear our voices, but at the same time keep decorum at the same time. Right now, I'd also like to take the moment to identify if anybody has a perceived or potential or real conflict of interest to identify, as our agenda was sent out previously to today's meeting. Latha, is there anybody that has declared that at this time? I'll check the chat just in case. See if I see any hands. Thank you. Seeing none. As well, this is a moment as well where we would ask membership to declare if there's been a change in their status of membership. So that would mean they are no longer a parent or caregiver of a student in the TDSB. They no longer preside in the ward that they are in, or their child does not go to a school in the ward which they are representing. I'm not seeing any. I can double check the chat. Thank you, Azim. I will try. I apologize as well. My voice isn't quite what it normally is. Bear with me here. Is that any better? I'm trying. So I will keep going. I'll speak as loud as I can as well, actually, if that will help. As well, this is a moment where we provide the approval of the consent agenda. Of course, that was set at our executive meeting last Tuesday. As well as the minutes are provided from the special meeting, which took place in November, as well as our November meeting. If anybody has any corrections that are needed to that set of minutes, if they could provide those corrections to Latha and our parent engagement office. I see a question from Andrew. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hello. Yeah, so this is looking for an amendment to the special meeting. It's indicated in the minutes that the meeting did not need to be public because it was a special meeting. I think that is, if there was a discussion that happened at the meeting, there's clear that members of the membership don't agree with that. So I think that needs to be amended. That was the position of staff. And I'm asking for that amendment.
Thank you, Andrew. Noted. And it was a decision as well of the chair to make that meeting a non-public meeting. And we spoke about it actually as well at the meeting as to why that was the case. But I thank you very much, and I have taken your note. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that needs to be documented in the minutes because the minutes are clear to that conversation, and it does not indicate that there was disagreement of that on that point.
Thank you, Andrew, and noted. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, so our minutes and our, can I get someone to move to a motion for our agenda as well as our minutes?
I'll put forward a motion. Janice Barnett, Ward 11.
Thank you. Can I get someone to second that?
Ward 20 will second that.
Thank you, Christopher. Okay, so we are moving on with our agenda.
Sorry,
sorry?
I'm not clear about if the minutes are going to be amended or if there was a vote to approve the minutes.
To include the disagreement of the meeting not being public, we can ask Latha to make that arrangement and amend those minutes. Andrew, make that correction. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. There was a co-chair report, which was sent out to everybody, so I'm not going to go into the details. What I will share is a welcome to Sarah Lee, who as last Thursday was acclaimed as PIAC's newest co-chair. So welcome, Sarah. Looking forward to working with you and doing great things. So again, round of applause for Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for taking on the role. As well, in that co-chair report, it also notes some board meetings and committee meetings that will be coming up in January. All board and committee meetings are open to the public, and we are welcome as PIAC members of the public actually, to be able to tune into those meetings. So they're there as well. On the note of meetings, a follow-up, you were also sent a letter which had been sent to the chair of the board, and that was related to an item on the agenda of the last board meeting, which was the vacancy of trustee in Ward 11, and whether that was to be an election or a by-election. I believe there were some concerns with that letter. Trustee, could I actually, and by the way, I'm going to step back a bit. I'd also like to welcome as well to our meeting, so of course our staff, as well as our trustee, Mate DeVitis, as well as I see trustee Deborah Williams on the line. Thank you for being here this evening. And as well, going back to the moment I was just in, I believe there were some concerns of that letter that was sent. And if I could ask trustee DeVitis to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you to the chair. Just want to take a moment to just go through a few things. The first thing is that this is first and most of all an advocacy group. It's an advisory group. You're there to push for things for your children. And this is a space where you do need to bring in the things that are of your concern. I think that's beyond question. And when there are instances where PIAC needs something to go to the board, I've had one instance so far in May of last year. I've taken that. That was in regards to the fundraising policy. And that was something that I wasn't familiar with. I had to go on and do a lot of digging to be comfortable sharing information and so on. And that's my role, I feel, to bridge the advice of this advisory committee to the board. I think I just want to clarify then what PIAC's role is from the point of view of an advisory group within the board. Because I challenged the letter that went to the board. Not because I agreed or disagreed with the content, but because it didn't make it clear that it hadn't gone through process. They hadn't gone through conventional sort of modes of coming to an agreement about what policy or direction you'd like to see the board. And that's important, particularly if we're going to have a conversation about democracy and we're making this about democracy versus other things. And process is important, and ensuring that people know who's sending the letter is important. So it's clear. When board members received the letter, they didn't understand that the letter hadn't gone through PIAC. PIAC is here. PIAC isn't individual members meeting, many members meeting, a few members meeting. PIAC is this process, and this process only. Okay? So let me use a couple examples just to sort of show that we're all under the same rules. An MP cannot send a letter to a foreign country on behalf of Canada. It's obvious, right? You can't say, I'm an MP, do this. Makes sense. Even a majority of MPs in Parliament wouldn't be able to send a letter on behalf of the government without going through some type of process. Same for an MPP, can't send a letter to Metrolinx about construction or everything on behalf of the government unless they are the government. Same for the city council, same for trustees. And we have a process when we need to send something to the Ministry of Education. If we need to send a letter, we vote on it. If there's a communication that needs a speedier process, we rely on staff to ensure that we're on board with existing policies and statements. So even though I may not agree with something that's happening and it is important, I don't just send a letter to the Minister of Education on behalf of the board. And it doesn't matter whether it's me or there's 22 of us, if it's 12, we have a majority, it doesn't matter. You still need to go through the board in order to be able to have a statement. Otherwise, it's my letter, which I'm allowed to send, obviously, in the same way that anybody here can send a letter or an email to elected officials. And I think it's important to note that because this is about process and ensuring that people understand what PIAC is doing and that there's integrity in that process. Anything else is miscommunication, and it's getting away from the objectives of PIAC. The letter said the PIAC rationale for, and it had a number of other instances. That's not accurate. PIAC didn't have a rationale. I found out about the letter at the same time as the other board members. There couldn't have been a process where PIAC made a decision because PIAC is this committee. And I think that's important. So I'm going to pause there. I know some of you may disagree with this and you want to quote bylaws, and fine. But that's a process that all elected officials are bound to. And there isn't anything in our bylaws and our rules that allows PIAC members to speak for PIAC without going through the process. And I hope that's clear. Back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeVitas. So, bear with me one moment, folks. I do see a hand. I'm trying to confirm who that is. My
That's
apologies.
Andrew says.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you for looking.
I know.
We'll work together on this. Okay. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll just keep this brief. I disagree with some of what was just said. And again, I will quote some bylaws. The chair or co-chairs of the PIAC, as per our bylaws, are the spokespersons for the committee. Past practice has been that between meetings, when there's an issue of significance, that we, it is the decision of the chair because we have elected the chair to represent us, okay? And again, if we have disfavor with what the chair is doing, then we have mechanisms, democratic mechanisms, to recall the chair. So, frequently over the number of years I've been at PIAC for 5 years, letters have been issued. In this situation, a member brought the issue forward, recognizing that this was they felt it was of urgent concern. It was discussed at multiple working groups, and at each working group, it was basically a consensus that to move this forward. All the people that attended those meetings made up a majority of the wards, and hence would likely have passed at a PIAC meeting. And I believe that is why Zena chose to send the letter. There was also a back and forth discussion amongst a number of members to the drafting of the letter to make sure that there was consensus on that piece as well. So, from my view, again, being a former co-chair, I know one of the other members actually reached out to another former co-chair, and they felt this was normal practice. Okay, so I can appreciate that we have a difference of opinion, but this is consistent with, I believe, democratic principles and consistent with how PIAC is operated and is operating in the best interest of the membership and ultimately to hold the board accountable and to improve pupil achievement and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And keeping this within my 10 minutes of my spot for co-chair report, our speakers list would be quite short, unfortunately, for this one. So, of course, this also can be continued offline. I don't want to stop the conversation. People can definitely reach out to myself, to Sarah, to Trustee DeVitas, as well as staff. But if we're okay right now, I'd like to move on so we can keep our meeting moving. And that would actually be our trustee report. And that would be with Trustee DeVitas.
Thank you through the chair. So I sent the report for the executive. I don't know if people have had a chance to take a look at it. There are 3 items on it. So I'll just go through them quickly. The main item is the fact that the federal government is initiating a new funding structure to pay for nutrition programs throughout Canada. Part of this monies will flow through to the Toronto District School Board through our partnership through the province for the program. We don't know exactly how much money this will be yet. Obviously, only a portion of the total monies, because it's parts of the monies go to different parts of the province and so on. And this will flow through the TFSS, who's the lead agency for the City of Toronto, and work with both school boards and so on. Regardless, there's still money for nutrition for children in the city, and that could be a positive thing. The current amount for the entire program is insufficient for the type of demand that we have, especially in the last couple of years. Food's getting expensive for a lot of families, or more expensive, I should say. So anyways, it's just an update report that people may have an interest on it. But this up for information at this point. The other part I wanted to bring out, because I know that over the years I've heard parents mention this, and then definitely since being on PIAC, websites are difficult to manage at the school board. And there are some renovations that are happening through the website, including the page for parents and parent information, so feedback would be helpful. And then lastly, the Learn for Life program, which staff reports in the previous term through the budget cycle had called for the complete reduction of the program, so the canceling of the program. So we're trying to revisit it now at the community's request. We've had lots of people come in and say that it's an important thing that we should continue. So encourage folks to promote it. There's lots of really interesting courses and things that people can take. The Learn for Life program, for those that aren't familiar with it, I should explain, is the adult learning program that happens after hours in some of our schools. So it's everything from technical courses, computers and so on, to cooking lessons and dance lessons and things like that. So classes kick off on January 11th, and registration is currently open. I also want to note that one of the PIAC members had mentioned last time, executive, after my report, that they would like to be better informed about policy consultations and so on. So I made a note of that, and I'll try and bring that information out through future meetings as these things come up. With that, I'll pass back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeVitas. Are there any questions? We will create a speakers list.
Yeah, we have just Andrew's hands up right now.
Thank you, Sarah. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is probably the best place to raise this. Sorry, if you give me one moment. Here we go. I also understand that there'll be a special board meeting tomorrow, or maybe it's a committee, I'm not quite sure, on the audit report that from the Auditor General of Ontario on the Toronto District School Board. And they made a series of recommendations, I think a total of 20. I think this is very important. Hopefully our membership can convey this, and I think this fits into the trustees update aspect. One of the things that was noted was there was an average daily enrollment decline of 4%, going from 251,000 students down to 240,000 students over a 5-year period ending 2022-2023. There appears to be a total of 20 recommendations made on in kind of 4 categories: school safety, financial management, capital, and performance. And I just like to, a couple things that I think touch upon the work that PIAC does. So for example, with school safety, it was discovered through the audit that there were concerns around the caring and safe schools audit, the team, that work not being done properly. I know we've spoken about this in the past about, there's supposed to be parents on those committees. I know of situations where it appears that the committee has not met at the school in a number of years, or that a parent caregiver has not been present on the committee. And something that PIAC should consider is a concept around having dashboards to ensure that those regulatory approaches, those compliance pieces are happening to ensure safety. And the other thing I found really surprising was the annual offensive declaration. There was a high percentage of staff that don't complete this. I know myself, I've been volunteering in the school for 5 years, and I completed my vulnerable sector check, then complete my annual declaration each year. Otherwise, I would not be allowed into the school to volunteer. I'm not going to, just quickly with financial management, there's a lack of basic managerial programs to manage staff, resources, and procurement effectively. These programs exist already in the private sector and in the public sector, and it's surprising that they don't exist in a board the size of the Toronto District School Board. Again, as we said previously, this board's operating budget is larger than the operating budget of Prince Edward Island as a province, okay? And then I'm not going to speak to capital because that gets really into the weeds, but just lastly, from a parent engagement perspective, performance management in the public, a real lack of an ability for people to understand what the board is doing and the decisions that are being made. And I'm going to highlight specifically recommendation 17, where it says we recommend that TSB develop and report on performance targets in its multi-year strategic plan and other reports submitted to the Board of Trustees that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So SMART. And update its website to make it easier for members of the public to find and access copies of all its reports. And I'll hold here, but I would like, if possible, a second round because there's one additional piece I'd like to say.
Thank you, Andrew. And
Thank you, Andrew. I just want to say quick, just a reminder, because of the timely, we have a 2 minute of speaking time, and also whoever finishes the time, unless Latha give us, one of the co-chair or myself, the access as a co-host to bring the hands down so that we know who has spoken and who hasn't. Thank you. But thank you, Andrew, for that. That was under 2 minutes.
thank you, Sarah, for helping keeping us on track here. So I don't see any other hands, although Sarah's looking at the speakers list. So Sarah, if you help us determine if we have time for one more round.
Sorry, through the chair. I don't know if that was a question. I was expected to comment on it since it's my report. Can you help me out on that?
Through you, Trustee DeVitas.
Yes, if you're welcome to comment on the, I guess what's occurring at the board tomorrow, or the committee.
So just so folks understand some context for the document, the province has been auditing a number of different municipal bodies, including the Toronto District School Board. There were some headlines around safety people may have seen. Context would be that the average increase of violence in the Toronto District School Board is no different than other parts of the province, and that our average is still smaller than other jurisdictions, and that the mean across Ontario. However, there are some things in there that are useful and helpful. I would say they took a long time to do the audit. I've been around the city when the province did something similar. And the way I can best express this in the very limited time that I have is that some of the recommendations also include things such as more fully funding some of the services that we need to be able to carry out. And an example, for example, today, the budget office at the province put out a report that says that we are the most underfunded school board in the entire province in terms of our capital needs, right? So it's important to know the context for some of these things. The province is sending folks to find things within the school board fair, and we need to do a better job on a number of different things, but there's some politics around it as well. I think that that needs to be said. And I'm gonna prop in the link to the report that came out today around capital funding, because we all have schools that need repairs, and the funding envelope that we currently have doesn't pay for all the things that we need.
Thank you, Trustee DeVitas.
Thank you. And just a quick, Andrew, have you shared also the audit report?
Yes, so I shared the audit report in the chat.
Thank you.
And if I could have 30 more seconds, if possible.
I think you had 30 seconds. Yeah, go ahead. Since we have it before we start, go ahead. If it's 30.
Is it possible that I can share my screen to show the board website?
Go ahead, Andrew, you can share.
Thank you. So here is the Toronto District School Board's website. I do appreciate and have seen that it appears there are being updates made to make it a little more clear in those kind of pieces. Again, this is a very aged website, so really appreciate the work that staff are doing. But one thing I would like to note is up here in the top corner here, there used to be a section called Leadership where you could easily click on it and get to the board and get to the agenda and meetings of the board. If you click on, appears to be replaced by About Us. And if you click on this, you actually cannot access the boardroom from the submenu here. There's no ability to access it. You actually have to Google and know to Google boardroom to get to the boardroom, which you can see here is leadership. There is a subcategory somewhere, but it is not accessible through navigation. You must know to type in boardroom to get to that. And you can see here where you can get access to the agenda minutes, those kind of pieces. This is still extremely difficult to navigate. I would have people take a look at how municipalities do it. It is much easier to navigate the items of the board and to quickly be able to search and figure out what's going on. Currently, there's agenda, there's minutes, and then there's separate documents called decisions. Then so you have to cross-reference all of this stuff to determine what conversation occurred. So again, I hope that the board can work on that, and that was one of the recommendations from the audit. Was around the ability of the public and quite frankly, parents and caregivers to actually understand the decisions that are being taken. And just lastly, as an example, and this was the very first board I Googled. If you look at the Peel board, this top level thing they have here. So one of the items is called the board. And right here, you can see trustees, the bylaws, board and committee meetings, a whole bunch of pieces relatively simply organized so that parents, caregivers, and the public can access and understand what's going on at the board. And again, as I said, the board is a $3.6 billion operating organization and really needs to have that kind of transparency, which it asks for from school councils and really needs to demonstrate. Okay, thank you.
Through you, Chair. May I just ask Andrew to go back to the TDSB's page for a moment, real quickly? Andrew, would you just go back there for a quick moment, just to our main page?
Absolutely. Sorry, so I'll go back here.
Yeah, just go back to the main page.
Yep.
So if you look on the main page fully,
Oh, actually, yeah, there is here.
so it's right there. It's
Okay.
immediately, so if you click right there, click trustees, board meetings.
Okay.
It's the exact same thing. It's also there. All right.
Sorry, I missed that because I wasn't
Yeah.
familiar with it up here. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Go ahead, Zena.
Thank you, Sarah. So actually, we have no other questions at this time. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a brief presentation about our bylaws and what that is when it comes to PIAC and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to welcome Erin and Kadeen to help take us through this presentation. I'm in it for like 30 seconds and then my voice is going to disappear for the evening, folks. And Sarah, thank you so much for being here and being a chair on PIAC. And last, I believe Kadeen may need access to share.
Yes, we will need some screen share ability. And thank you very much, everybody. Good evening. We always appreciate your time and your energy you put into our work of PIAC. My name is Kadeen Bankasing, pronoun she, her, and I am one of your 2 reps from Ward 8. Eglinton Lawrence. I'm also one of your co-leads for the operational effectiveness working group, and I am so pleased to announce that Erin Clark, Ward 1, have I got your ward right, Erin? Please forgive me if I didn't, but Ward 1 has also stepped up and joined me as the co-lead for the operational effectiveness. Erin, do you want to say hello at all?
No, I think everybody knows me. Hi, Erin here, Ward 1. So excited to be a co-rep. Yay me.
Hey.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. And just so you know that at last meeting, you approved and allowed us to take some of the time on December's agenda to do an overview of the bylaws, of the PIAC bylaws for you. This serves a number of purposes. I think it is certainly an introductory step into what we are undertaking this year to review and to amend and update the bylaws so that they really properly reflect our current meeting dynamics, being post-COVID, in our hybrid realities, and what all of this means, and certainly so that they reflect the kind of current composition of our membership now and the needs of our members here. Certainly, we also want to use this as a chance to use this shared space, or take this shared space where we have great attendance, to do a bit of learning, right? To build all of our capacity around the bylaws and how they support our work. And I know over the past few months, we've spent quite a bit of time kind of reviewing, okay, how do we make decisions? How does this work properly? How are we doing all of this work and actually doing it by way of process that's correct? And I mean, that's just a reference even back to our trustee representative Mateus' point around, okay, how do we all collectively take action in ways that are correct and meet our mandates? So tonight is really meant to just be an overview. I want to say Erin and I are not experts. We're also using this as an opportunity to learn and build our own knowledge and take the guidance from everybody else who is a part of PIAC. So we have general overview, let's just say, as we get to know our governance models, we've taken all of the 11 articles and sections within the bylaws and just kind of set them up this way for you. It is not detailed, but what we are encouraging and asking of you is that you will join us in interacting a little bit with the slide deck, as we've got a few true and false and kind of quiz questions embedded in there, not to know if you're right or wrong and or to put anybody or call anybody out for saying, yeah, do you know or don't you know, but in fact, just to give us an opportunity to test our own knowledge around our bylaws. So we are going to work through the presentation in this way. Some of the sections have been combined so that our 11 sections are kind of just broken up in a few different headers, and I'll continue on right now. So for everybody, what governs PIAC? Our PIAC actually processes our ability to work with the board, with trustees, bring our actions, our motions, and our recommendations forward, are really supported by the Ontario Education Act.
Sorry, Katie, to interrupt. I don't think so. Is anybody able to see the slides? Because we see nothing. I see dark skin.
I see nothing.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
It says that I'm screen sharing.
Your camera may be blocked, Katie.
No, it's not a camera thing. Let's see. There we go. Layouts. It's a Zoom.
You can see Kadeen, but not her screen.
Okay.
So
let
her
me-
have something camera is else, okay. screen sharing on there.
Yeah, let's try this one more time. Do you see anything now?
Yeah, now we can.
Yes. All right. Fantastic. You missed nothing. Sorry, you missed this slide before, just to say that this is just the grouping of the sections that we're going to present this information to you, and you'll get some clarity on which kind of articles are reflected in the bylaws. So as mentioned, our work and our existence as a statutory committee of the board is informed and governed by the Ministry of Education and Ontario Regulation 612. So you've heard a number of references to Regulation 612 that says how the parent involvement committees are created and the purpose that they serve within the province and within our local jurisdictions, but as well how they inform and are meant to carry out the work of the Ministry of Education. We are also, if you will, structured and supported by bylaws that are created and upheld by our members and our membership. And we also have a set of best practices that are operating procedures. And these are also defined and outlined by the working groups and actually the work of the members of PIAC members. We also are supported, if you will, by some other operational practices, policies and procedures that include our equity policies within the TDSB. Parent and caregiver engagement is a constant reference, as well as code of conducts that really speak to behaviors and actions in the ways that we engage with each other. So for your reference, the bylaws are the formal governing standards of the organization. So they represent the things that must be done. All right, must be done. So our bylaws then would state the rules, if you will, as an example for the number of elected members, how elections are carried out, as well as the roles that members will play. Right, so those are bylaws. And so when we're referring to the bylaws, we're talking about those governing standards that support our work. Separately, the operating procedures, the PIAC best practices outline the processes, some of the steps that we can take, or the suggested ways that we can get this work done. So that is the current ways of doing things. All right. The operating procedures, as an example, outline the process for forming an election committee and listing the positions and the roles of the elected officers. So if you're wondering about the images, sorry, here, our bylaws, if you will, could be compared to or imagined as the structure of our PIAC home, of the house that we sit in, what it looks like, the shape it takes, the blueprint, and then certainly our best practices then represent what the design would look like inside, the aesthetic, if you will, of how we move through things and how things look and feel to us. So I think that's just an important kind of way of designating between the two. We're talking about the bylaws, our structure, and then certainly within that, the practices of how we get our work done, right? How we work between working groups, how we work with our leadership and our other staff supports, etc. So Articles 1 and 2 of the bylaws, forgive me, of the PIAC bylaws really just outline the name and the purpose of the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee. It also describes who we are and what we're here for. And of course, that will speak to our relationship and being that statutory committee, our work of upholding OREG 612, but it also says how we work with the Toronto District School Board, how we work with parents and caregivers, and how we support and work with our school councils. Also a big focus of many of our discussions and our working group actions as well. How we support engagement with parents and caregivers, how we support our school councils, and then certainly how we do this work aligned with the TDSB. All right, so very simple introductory steps into an opening into the bylaws. So our mission and vision here, just for reference, is that we are here to support parents as partners in education. And how we do this is really to aid access to information and resources for parents. All right, so what is to work as a connection to support that access to information, resources, and supports, especially that of the Toronto District School Board and Ontario Ministry of Education, in support of more effective parent engagement in their child's learning to improve student achievement and well-being and enhance the accountability of the education system to meet those needs of our students. Right. So we're here to ensure that parents can support their children and their communities towards educational attainment and are guided by the policies of the ministry and the TDSB to do so. And we're also here to advocate for improved practice, for improved accountability that ensures that we can meet those goals. All right, we are going to for those of you who have logged in, are going to have a series of true and false questions, if you will, at the end of each section. So really, yeah, it's just the way that the platform is set up. We're playing a game, but we're also just testing where we are in our own knowledge of our PIAC structures and systems. So you can join here if you'd like to join the QR code. You can scan in there. You can also open another tab on your device by going to menti.com and putting in the code here, 14521082. So we see a few people up there. You can see you're all anonymous players. Thank you for your time, for your participation. We'll leave this open just for another moment, but I'll also leave the QR code up. You can still enter, but I'm going to move the slide along if that's okay, folks. Ooh. And you should be able to see the question on your, however you're logged in. There's only a few seconds, maybe 15 to 20 seconds to answer this question. And PIAC stands for the Parent Involvement Advisory Council. True or false? Doesn't seem like a hard question, but there might be a trick in there. PIAC stands for the Parent Involvement Advisory Council. All right. And it's only false because, in fact, the C in PIAC stands for committee and not council. And we are a statutory committee of the board and one of, I believe, 13, and please correct me if I'm wrong, one of the 13 advisory committees or community advisory committees currently supporting the work of our trustees and implementing the work of our trustees as well in the board. All right, so we are a committee, not a council, committee of the board. My final section, and then I'll pass it on to Erin, is just to mention to you that Article 3 in our bylaws is all about our membership. It describes who our voting and non-voting members are, who, how members get elected into their positions, as well as how non-voting members are also appointed into their positions. It does also talk about the executive committee composition, who is required to attend those meetings. It tells us about, as mentioned, our member elections, the terms, and the length of those terms, what the expectations are related to those terms. And it also speaks to member training and orientations. What are the requirements or the expectations around PIAC supporting new members who are coming into their roles? And so I think this is really important to say that, yes, there is a requirement that all new members who join the PIAC should have an opportunity to be oriented before their first meeting. Right. It also speaks to the opportunity for members to be supported if we request by the PCCEO office and other staff to provide trainings in various areas that is capacity building or knowledge sharing for members as well. And we can request those opportunities for training and training and development. So you can see here just quickly, we've got 2 wards, 2 reps times 22 wards, CLG reps. We have the support of the PCCEO office, our director designates, as well as our trustee reps, who are all part of the composition of PIAC membership. All right. So question 2 of 10. Let's see, we got about 10 true or false questions here. And I'm going to open the question for folks. And this again is a true or false question. If a member is unable to attend a general meeting, they must notify the co-chairs in advance. This is a question that's related to your personal responsibilities for being in attendance at PIAC meetings. All right. And that is true. All right. So that's part of the expectations of how members are able to deal with life, but still be accountable to attending the required meetings per school year. All right. You should be reaching out to your co-chairs, CCing Lata to send regrets for general meetings. All right. So here's the next question. Who is a non-voting member of who is not, forgive me, of the list that you see there, who is not one of our non-voting members? So as mentioned, we have voting and non-voting members. Listed there, you have associate directors, the PCCEO staff, your CLG or your community liaison groups, co-chairs, and trustee representatives. So of those listed there, who is actually a voting member, not a non-voting member? And the way this question is might be a little tricky for folks. And so when we are doing our roll calls for the motions or for those actions that come forward at the general meetings, who are the members who are allowed to vote or not able to vote? All right. And so the answer for that one actually is the CLG. So our community liaison groups, and I believe we have the Bangladeshi community CLG, they are also a part of our roll calls. So you will notice that we do have a representative, and when we are taking votes, they are allowed to vote. Associate directors, our staff, co-chairs, and trustee representatives will not participate in our roll call votes or counted in our consensus.
Katie, can I just step in really quickly here?
Point of order.
Sorry, yes, Andrew?
I believe this question is incorrect. Co-chairs are voting members. They only vote in the case of a tie.
Thank you, Andrew. I was actually just about to say that as well.
That's what I was about to say.
Only
And-
when there's a tie.
Only when there's a tie. Thank you very much for that, everyone. And so a wonkily worded question, maybe a bit of a trick question, but in the event of a tie, when a vote is on the floor, are the co-chairs invited to place a vote? Thank you. And I will pass it over to Erin.
Hi, sorry. Okay, so it appears that I received my instructions poorly. I just will give a very brief overview of each of the 3 segments: meetings, making decisions, working group. I will try to, because I didn't use the slide deck when making my points here, so I apologize in advance. So the meeting section of the bylaws breaks down the general expectation, behavior, and the 4 different types of meetings and how they function. The meeting section also covers setting the meeting agenda, schedules, as well as how quorum is achieved through membership and attendance requirements. So the executive meetings is where the agendas are prepared for the general meetings. Strategic planning is a yearly planning session for how we plan to achieve long-term, short-term goals for the for PIAC. And then special meetings come up kind of as needed. We have a section for meeting norms and behaviors, code of conduct, and what constitutes quorum, schedules, and the agenda and how they're laid out in the meetings, and the requirements for attendance and accountability toward the groups. So as a general member, you are expected to participate in as many meetings as you can, and giving proper regrets when you cannot. So sorry, that's my bit for meetings. I can't see. I've got to go to another screen now, sorry. I didn't see what the question is. The co-chair set the agenda for the monthly general meetings, true or false? Interesting. So that is actually false. The agenda is set at the executive meeting, and that is with the co-chairs, the co-leads, and the school trustee rep. I think I might be missing somebody. But it's a group. Sorry.
No, that's a good way to put it.
Presentations are not my thing, so sorry.
Oh, you're doing awesome. And yes, it is certainly a group effort to get the general meeting agenda prepared.
I'm not sure if I did miss a group there for that though. Okay, so Oh, another question.
Oops. Oops, what happened?
A member must attend at least 60% of PIAC meetings in a school year. True or false? Yay group. So yes, you are all correct. A member is expected to attend at least 60% of the PIAC meetings during the school year, the general meetings. Okay, making decisions covers just that, the various voting practices of the general meeting and when we might refer to Robert's Rules of Orders. Generally, we have a consensus. There is consensus versus voting. Consensus, is essentially, well, I guess we haven't really been doing it in a while, but unless there is an against, then the general population is in favor. There's voting. So you either roll call in favor, against, or oppose, abstain, sorry. And then you have what we have been doing with this roll call voting. And if you want to have a roll call, then you say that you would like a roll call vote, and then it goes through the room. So that's that. I think I don't have anything else on that one. Yep. Next slide, please. Voting abstain is counted as opposed to the motion, true or false? It's correct. Abstaining is not counting as an against vote. Very good. Sorry, thank you. These little pop-ups appearing on my screen are getting distracting. So the working groups, we have a few working groups that fall into a governance and non-governance categories. Bylaws for this section focus on the allowable membership into the working groups, reporting requirements, and the formation of the sub-working groups. That's pretty much it. You're required to, I don't want to spoil a question. You are allowed to join as many working groups as you would like. The question will tell you how many you are required or asked to be a part of, but it is an expectation. And then the governance covers budget, bylaws, and matters that typically would require a roll call vote on the floor. And then each working group lead, co-lead has a requirement to the PIAC members to present what the group is working on. That's it. And the questions for this. Working group membership carries from year over year. Or do you have to sign up each year? You're correct, mostly. The working group membership does not carry over year. You must join at the beginning of each new school year term. Our members asked to register for a minimum of 2. Is correct. You are asked only to register for 1, but you can register for as many as you would like. And that is encouraged to attend as many as you can. And you do not have to be a part of the working group to attend a meeting. You can attend any meeting if you are a PIAC member. Okay. That's my piece. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Kadeen. So I'm just going to speak as quickly as I can, but clearly. So the last
Your audio cut out.
had it for a second.
There, gotcha.
You are,
Now you muted.
and then you muted.
My apologies, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So the portions that remain cover accountability, conflict of interest, conflict resolution, and those sections, what they
Oh, you just
I am sorry, everyone. Actually, just because right now there isn't consistency. Kadeen or Aaron, can you finish us off here, please? Because I just don't want to keep cutting out and taking the time of the group.
All right, I'll just say really quickly that sections or articles 7, 8, and 9 speak to our accountability of our work to the board and to our caregiver communities, and the provision of an annual report created by the PIAC co-chairs. That's Article 7, our accountability. We also then speak, Article 8 is related to conflicts of interest, for what it means for parent reps who sit on parent and caregiver reps who sit on PIAC to declare whether they are staff at the board and otherwise, and excusing themselves in those situations from certain decisions that are being made. So we're all required to sign declarations, but then also have are expected to meet certain expectations around matters where conflicts of interest come forward, and to declare that openly, and then also to outline what our process and what are the steps that we would take to deal with and address conflicts that we are experiencing as members within the board. Right. I see here also, so that's our member dispute resolution, and what that means when we find ourselves in moments trying to work through conflicts with other members and or experiences that we are having and how to address them, and also the conflict of interest and what it means to declare that there are no personal benefits or gains to be made if we are as representatives sitting on the PIAC committee. All right, and then finally, I won't waste time on the questions. I was having a bit of issue getting them up there. The amendments and the sections 10 and 11. Section 10 being our amendments really speak to how we can undertake changes, updates, and adjustments to the existing bylaws, how those happen, and what is required as a committee to formalize those amendments when they're brought forward. And then the version history as the final section is just a small segment that speaks to when revisions have been made and keeping a note of all of the revisions that have been made since the original. Thank you for posting that, Nicole, in the chat, since the original bylaws were developed. All right. All right, another true or false question for you. PIAC bylaws can be amended more than once a year, and that year is our school year. All right, and the answer for that is false because the bylaws cannot be amended more than once a year. And for those amendments to be official, we need a majority approval from all members, from all of our voting members at PIAC. So even if the changes are made or recommendations are made to amend those bylaws, they can only be formalized by a majority vote for all, by all of our members. All right.
Point of order.
Thank you, Andrew. Go ahead.
As we actually did at the special meeting, I've already amended our bylaws this year, but we, as part of the amendment process, indicated that we could amend the bylaws again. So the bylaws can effectively be amended as much as possible, because as long as the committee says when they're amending them that they want to continue to have the ability to amend them in the year, then it can happen. So yes, our bylaws do speak to this once per year piece, but again, as the committee in a democratic process and with a two-thirds vote to amend bylaws, we can amend the bylaws as much as we'd like each year.
Okay. Thank you for that. And again, just one of those processes and ways that we can work around that. In order for that amendment to happen again, we did have to vote that in fact we would ensure and allow for the bylaws to continue to be amended this year. So thank you for that. Again, just having the process and knowing the process and the awareness to be able to do that correctly is a part of our work as well. So thank you for that. And so just a trick question, if anybody has reviewed or looked at the work, our last PIAC bylaws were revised in 2021 and approved at that time. And certainly the revisions that were made in that year were enormously important to how we were able to do our work effectively virtually. So that was a big shift for us, going from mainly in-person meetings to moving online. And now we find ourselves coming out of that to doing our work hybrid, and what that creates for us by way of process and the ability for all members to engage and participate.
I'd like to thank Kadeen and Aaron. It looks like I have my microphone back for a couple of moments. And thank you to those who participated for points made about our bylaws. We have a lot to learn still. New members, veteran members that are wrapping their head around the bylaws. So I encourage everybody to get involved in the bylaw review process. It's a learning experience. It also helps shape the work that we do and how we do that work. What I'm going to do, because my voice and my microphone are slowly disappearing this evening, I'm asking Sarah if she's okay with it to take the chair from me so we can get through the rest of our meeting this evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Zena. Same here. I'm in the same situation, but a little bit better than Zena. Okay, thank you guys. Thanks, Kadeen and Aaron, for this amazing information.
to say really quickly, please, everyone, take some time. We're going to continue to do this work throughout the rest of the year. The bylaws work is being undertaken at the operational effectiveness. We're sending, different ways for you to give your feedback and input into what these amendments are, and or ways that, the ways that they can better reflect and or be clarified for your understanding. I think that's really important. So really what we want to do here is just to encourage your participation in this work, so that actually what we come out of at the end of this school year is really reflective of who we are and what we need. All right. And how we do our business here. So that's all I want to say. Thank you, Chair. Pass it back over to you, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Lata, if we can put the agenda back on just to see where we are on it. And thanks for everybody who took it in. It was very formative, and I liked the question and answer. That was fun. Okay, so we are now at item 6 at the PIAC co-chair election, which we actually have timing allocation. I know we already passed, we dedicated 30 minutes until 8:21. Right now is 8:14. I'm just giving the, in regards to questions about if there's any PIAC rep, co-reps that would like to share certain things. If it can be done within 10 minutes or so, this would be an allocation time. And then we will go straight to the working group, if that's okay with everybody. Eden, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually just wanted to ask a question, and I rarely make it to the end of the meetings
Yes.
with bedtime. So I had reached out in one of the PIAC groups that I am meeting with. I'm a Ward 16 representative, and one of our schools is on the list that the TDSB had put forward, capital projects list. We've been on that list since 2019, and I am meeting with our MPP tomorrow morning. So I was just wondering if anyone had suggestions about what we should be asking for in that meeting in terms of advocating for our school to get selected. So if anyone has any suggestions or can advise me before that meeting or even afterwards, please reach out, and I will drop my personal email in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Eden. You guys heard it. If you can help out, please reach out to Eden for all that wonderful information. Okay, anybody else? This is an open for any PIAC rep concern questions, because I know it's always hard to reach it till the end. The goal is, and I know me and my co-chair Zina, is to make sure that we get to the agenda as quickly as possible, but also to bring in the concerns what we're here for, representing our wards and also to the parents and caretakers. If not, we can start with item 7, if nobody else has any questions or statement or comment to raise. Okay. So we're going to working group reports. Operational effectiveness working group.
I was waiting to see if Aaron would unmute or not.
And can you guys, just a question, just for clarification, because I know we always have a lot of PIAC reps that haven't joined the working group. If you can introduce yourself as the co-lead, who the working group is, that would be really great and will help the other PIAC reps to maybe join in and get advice. So that's just a little kind of intro, not too long, but just a quick intro for that. That would be greatly appreciated for the working group. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't need to reintroduce ourselves because we just took a bunch of your time. But again, I'm Kadeen, Ward 8, and supported by Aaron, Ward 1, as your co-leads for operational effectiveness. We're one of the governance working groups. So this working group is closed or specific to members only, elected members, to participate. What we are dealing with at operational effectiveness is budgets, bylaws, some of our processes on how we do our work as well, and working with other working groups as well. We apologize. We do not have a working group report prepared for you this evening. It is one of the things that did not make it to the top of our to-do list over the past week. We did have a meeting and we'll continue to meet on the Mondays before executive, so that kind of second week of the month. Our next meeting, I believe, is January the I want to say the 16th, but I can confirm that 6 to 7:30. And just wanted to say that we've been continuing in-depth conversations around how we do our work, how we continue to support actions taken by our working groups, areas of interest of our members, while still being able to support and work at a pace that supports everybody's needs and ability to participate fully. So I just want to note that that's a lot of our conversation, how we're able to match and manage our ability to take actions at the committee, to make our decisions, have our votes, and at the same time support the needs of members to ensure that we are maximizing participation. That was certainly a focus of our conversation last week. We'll continue to update you on our budget spending, as well as this work of our bylaws review throughout the remainder of the year. Thanks, everyone. And Erin, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it all. Thank you, Kadeen.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. And we will ensure to get the report so that it can be posted and available for members. Again, apologies for not having it prepared tonight. Thank you.
Tim? Yeah, you guys can go. You have any reports, motion, operational?
Nope, that's it for us.
That's it? Okay. Thank you. Okay. I don't see anybody hands up, so we go into strategic planning, which used to be part of me, but Mercy, if you're there.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mercy Charles. I'm the representative from Ward 6 and the co-lead for strategic planning. So just some updates from our working group. From our meeting in November, Sarah and I were acclaimed as the co-leads. And so we will be looking for another co-lead on our next meeting. So we talked about the strategic planning session. We discussed potential dates and venues. And after, looking into all the different options that we had, we settled on January 18th and with the Novotel as the location. And so it has been successfully booked. And the session will be at 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. So the session will be focusing on expanding the priorities of the strategic goals, aligning it with the PIAC objectives, and addressing members' feedback through training and role classifications. So the 4 goals from the previous plan are become the trusted source of information for families and caregivers, increase awareness of PIAC across the system. Number 3 is support school councils and digital environment. And the 4th goal is to create equity within the group and consultation and external activities. So at the last PIAC meeting this month, we discussed the logistics of the session. We're currently planning the agenda as well as what roles we're going to have for the preparation and the execution of the session. The RSVP for the session went out on Friday. So we had thank you to the 17 members who signed up. We need 8 more to go because we need a minimum of 25. So please sign up. The deadline is this Friday. And our next meeting is on January 16th. That's it. Thank you.
Mercy, question. Can you put, just in case for members who were not able to attend the strategic meeting, the link for them to sign up?
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. Any motion, any other Think for strategic team, working group. Do you guys have any motions or any of that, or that's it?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mercy. Thank you very much. I'll definitely miss that. So again, please sign up for it. And then also there will be opportunity for the co-lead position with strategic plan to work with Mercy. That's been great. Okay, membership working group.
Hello. So we sent out the membership working group report. There is one motion, which I'll speak to in a second. But effectively, the bulk of the work that occurred this month was to support the election, which Zena spoke about. So again, congratulations, Sarah, on your acclamation as co-chair. Looking forward to working with you. I'd like to thank Eden, who supported the election process as the returning officer with myself. And with that, we can take any questions on the co-chair election process. So I'll pause for a moment for that. Otherwise, I will continue with my report.
Kim, you guys heard it. Any question in regard to the co-chair election? And Andrew, can you let us know just a quick of what who the co-lead of the membership group is, and it just less than 10-15 seconds of summary of what the membership role is.
The
membership role is just
yes. So my fellow co-lead is Francis, and our mandate is to support PIAC representatives and parent caregiver members to encourage active participation in PIAC's purpose to support, encourage, and enhance parent engagement at the board level in order to improve student achievement and well-being.
Thank you. I don't see any hands up, so go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. So then, again, this is also sort of duplication in the co-chair report. But again, from the last report the membership working group issued, there were 4 either elections or newly elected or re-elected. So again, like to welcome member back from, a member from Ward 4, Ward 14, and Ward 19. And Zena has already covered that in the co-chair report. The other piece to note is currently our vacancies are down to 8 vacancies out of a possible 47. So that is a very low vacancy rate. In the past 3 years, we've been averaging upwards of 16 to 18 vacancies on average. So again, it appears that through the work both of the membership working group, the difficult conversations we had to have over the last 2 months, and the work that the co-chair undertook to engage with trustees, that it looks like elections are occurring and vacancies are being reduced. So moving on to the motion. So the motion, this is again a carry over from the previous meeting because we kind of were running out of time. So the motion is, and I'll read it and move it. PIAC declare the following PIAC co-representative seats vacant due to a lack of meeting attendance at the PIAC general meeting by PIAC co-representatives as per PIAC bylaws 4.9.4. Members who miss either A, 3 or more consecutive PIAC general meetings without advising apologies for absence, or B, total of 4 PIAC general meetings in any school year may be removed from his/her seat, and or PIAC bylaw 4.9.5, member must attend at 60% of PIAC meetings in a school year. So there are 4, Ward 9, Ward 10, Ward 15, and Ward 23. The first name being Karen, Milana, Jennifer, and Nicole. Sorry, Latha, can you share on the screen the report and the motion? And I'll need a seconder.
Ward Harvey, Ward 3.
And I'll turn it back to Sarah to run the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. Just giving time for people to read, members to make sure to read the motion. Okay, we have our hands up. Let's see if there's someone. Alice, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just had a question. I guess I'm not really too familiar with the process here, with this part of the process. I'm just wondering why it's necessary to have a motion with a naming specific board reps when if it's already in our bylaws that after 3, then they can no longer be co-reps. Would that just not be something that they would get a notice of in an email instead of in sort of like a public motion? I'm just wondering why this is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Andrew or co-leads, Francis?
I agree with you. I think one of the things we need to look, it used to be that we had reps and alts, and so that was easy to do that distinction. But when we move to co-reps, I think something we should look at doing, and this would be through the bylaw work, is actually indicating maybe that, co-rep A and co-rep B or something, and then we wouldn't have to name the individuals. I completely support that piece, but from past practice over the last couple of years, in the motion, the individuals have previously been named. So carrying on with that practice, but I do support trying to, again, we are vacating the position, we are vacating the seat, not the person.
Janice, Ward 11, go ahead.
Thanks, Sarah. I just have a question regarding, so these 4 individuals, has there been any effort made to reach out to them to speak to them regarding why they have not been attending? I know it's strictly probably it's not necessary to follow through on contacting them to in order to have them removed, but it may be a useful exercise just to understand why, after going through the effort of trying to be a co-rep, why they would just sort of not show up to the meetings. So back to my question, have you guys actually spoken to any of them?
So I'll make 2 points here. I do agree and support the effort of where we are having a disengagement to try to ascertain the reason. I do believe in exit surveys and those kind of pieces, and there has been some resignations of other members, and we have sought to get that information. As for these members, these attendance issues stretch back to last year and even to well into the previous year. So I guess from my perspective, I've tried to engage and have not, I've had little luck. I asked Janice, being a former co-lead of the membership working group, did you engage with these members during your tenure last year?
So from my memory, I believe all of them were at some time at meetings, but I'm just curious why they sort of dropped off. So again, like I said before, it's probably not strictly necessary as per what Alice was saying, that we actually have to contact everybody, but it's just a courtesy, that's all. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Janice and Alice and Andrew. And anybody else has any question in regards to motion? Okay. So are we going to proceed with the motion?
Through the chair,
Go
Johnson Jayola, Ward 4. So I just want to comment on this motion. And I have 2 comments. First, rules are rules, laws are laws. Practically, this is why we are humans. It governs us. That's my first comment. My second comment is life is unpredictable. We don't know what, like Andrew said, they've been attending meetings. Okay, no, I think the other co-rep said that they've been attending meetings and they never knew when they dropped off. So we don't know why they dropped off. But we have to understand that the first reason why we are all here as volunteers is because of our children. And a lacuna cannot be entertained. If there's any gap, it is very pertinent that these gaps are filled up because of our children. So if they can't continue, then it's very important these seats are declared vacant. And I believe this motion is in order and that we should move ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnson. I think that's where we are right now in the stage. So again, the motion is presented. Are we moving forward? Gonna go on a vote. Anybody against the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. We'd rather go so that we can expedite it. Probably with motion, we might say anybody against it or abstaining it. There's one abstain, if we can track it. You guys can put either on the, we can go through word by word, but I don't know if it's necessary. Balata, Zena, you can go ahead and tell it.
Can this not be done by, only if 3 people want to vote? Otherwise, it should be passed.
Exactly. Yeah. So to Janice's point, so the only reason why we do a roll call vote at this point, as per the pilot project that we're currently using still, is if 3 members do want a roll call vote, then it is a roll call vote. If not, it is considered passed. And that speeds up the process.
Perfect. Thank you, Zena. There you go. Any 3 members that would like a roll call? Doesn't look like it.
Seeing none.
Done.
Thank you. That concludes the report.
Yep. Thank you. Back to the agenda. I think that was membership. Thank you, Lata. And if we can get back to the agenda just to see the next working group. Ward 19, if you have a question in regarding to.
Yeah, I saw that motion has passed. So now what will happen after this? Like, how do we get a new PIAC member?
So your question is.
I can speak to that. If
Yeah, Andrew, go ahead. It's still on the membership.
so, working with the 2 co-chairs, reaching out to the trustees of the wards to try to get an election or ward form with an election going as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Ward 19%. Thank you, membership working group. Now we go for school council support working group. If you can introduce the co-leads, briefly what you guys do, and then ahead if you guys have motions on it. And school council working group. We can always come back to school council working group if they're busy.
I'm here. Melanie, are you able to talk at all?
Oh, there is Gordon is here.
She's Mel? No, she can't talk. Okay, the report kind of speaks to itself a little bit. The biggest issues is we're working through some outstanding issues, still working on some school council email IT support and that new process. I've been through it. It was a little slow, but it did work, which was helpful. The transition from individual school council accounts to a joint account for the school council caused some consternation, and there were some email losses, but that process seems to be well through the worst parts of it. And I know that others have had some success with the new process, getting their emails up and running. So we will keep an eye on that. One of the big issues we're working through for the year, and Jack, Lisa, and Elizabeth, I got that name right, have been very open about is accountability for principals, and we're working to get that added next year, which is on the list, as well as we're talking through a checklist of sorts, which would fit in with what Andrew was talking about, having some sort of Andrew, what'd you call it? A bulletin board or something, so that dashboard. Thank you. A dashboard so people could see that the school councils have been created, that the Caring and Safe Schools Committee is there, budget consultations have been done, that sort of thing, and some and financial transparency. So there's still a lot of stuff that needs to get worked on. There was an update there. The chair sent a letter to the new minister to try to get the handbook updated. What am I missing that is urgent? I think that's it. We're also trying to work through getting a list out to, or a checklist out for individual PIAC members on how they can best support the school councils in their area. And so one of the PIAC members went and called each of the principals, did that work. And we're going to build off of that and come up with some support, as sort of a checklist. This is, one idea of how you can support your school council groups. If you have any suggestions or ideas, we can open up the floor. And if there's any issues, individual issues, you can always bring those up to Jack, Lisa, and Elizabeth, if there's school council issues that have not been properly addressed. Any questions from anybody? All right then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. You guys have any motion or any of that from school council working group?
No, there was a motion that ended up in communications.
Okay.
But we will have a financial transparency motion, but not until January.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you, Gordon and Melanie, for co-lead. Special events working group.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Ono. I am the Ward 17 co-rep. And according to our just on time submitted report to everyone, we have we've combined November and December's report. And in November, I was elected as the co-lead for this working group. The other co-lead is Nadia, that usually takes the reins, so I am learning. Our report is quite simple. It hasn't changed much in the last couple months. Our description or objectives is very similar to the membership group. For those that are new, we have members, community volunteers, and staff who are responsible for assisting and collaborating with successful delivery of PIAC led events, such as the PIAC conference. So that even though it's the events working group, plural, we do typically have one event pertaining to school council support. Our constant motto is Ready, Set, Engage. And this year we have focused on the title of School Council and Principals Stronger Together. The event is happening February 1st, 2025 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., only 4 hours. hosted at Woburn Collegiate. Invitations have been drafted, and we have recently purchased the platform to send invitation and track registrations. We will be using Punchbowl. This year's event is by invitation only to all school councils and principals, with a maximum of 3 parent reps for each school that doesn't have a school council in place or a full school council, representing the main 3 roles as chair, secretary, and treasurer. Of course, superintendents and trustees are also invited. And I will take this moment to remind all PIAC representatives and co-reps that this week, those invitations are going out. So LATHA several weeks ago has sent out, last month actually, sent out each ward rep an update of their school council lists and contact information. There are some blanks, like for example, I know my list had 16 schools on it, but I have 24 schools in my ward. So it is our job to cross-reference, fill out those contacts where we can, either through contacting the schools directly, principals directly, or even going through your trustee for some help. But that is the only way we can best support our school councils. And if their email is not available, there is no way to send your school or schools in your ward that invitation. So hopefully those are updated, because we're taking what we have as of the end of the week for invitations. And we did review our budget. Our budget is looking good and well within means. We've got facilitators of the workshop. So this year's structure is 2 sessions, 3 options each session to attend. We have ideas for facilitators and of each workshop. We're providing network opportunities, and then at the end of the evening, a panel to address important questions. And the panel session is still a work in progress. In the new year, we will be doing a call out for volunteers for the event. Speaking of the new year, our next meeting is January 6th, 2025. We do have new members to our working group, so that's exciting. We are growing, and we are looking for transportation. We're looking into TTC, Presto cards, gas cards, and school buses or school buses. All options are being discussed and considered. Dagmar is covering the child minding as per usual. She's a TDSB qualified vendor, and we went through a vendor list for the refreshments to obtain quotes for refreshments for the event. And no motions, just an update. If there are any questions, I'll take them at this time.
Thank you, Tanya, for that info. Anybody, any questions? Okay, Musa, he has his hands up. Musa, go ahead, from Ward 19.
Hi, this is Musa Alu from Ward 19. My question is not for Tanya, is for Michelle or anyone related to it. I'm part of the special events working group, and I personally feel that the vendors list we have is not adequate to the needs of what should be there. And I feel that we should be able to contact or get other vendors that are not on the list, especially ones that can be found in Scarborough. As I found out that there's no vendors from Scarborough on that list. So if you could shed some light on it, that would be great.
The only light I can shed on that is that the board has a procedure that states that we work with vendors of the board. So what I could do is go back and see what vendors we have about restaurants and produce that and see where they land. I keep having this ongoing conversation around that, Musa, and I keep coming back to PIAC with the same messaging. And I'll keep going back and forth with the staff and keep coming back to the committee with that messaging, that we work with vendors of the board, and that if there are groups that you know in Scarborough that's interested in being a vendor with the board, what we can do is introduce those groups to our board process and work with them in having them becoming a vendor. I think that may be the way we can go. Whether they can complete that process in time for this event, difficult to say, but if you have restaurants or companies that are interested in being a vendor, let's get them interested in getting started in the vendor process.
Great, that sounds great. So who should I contact for that? Will that be you?
You know what? Why don't you begin with me, and then what I could do is direct you to the board's website, where the vendor may begin that process themselves. Yes?
Okay, sure,
All right.
we can do that.
Thank you, Musa. Gordon has his hands up. Gordon, go ahead for Ward 3.
Yeah, I was just curious why we have an approved vendor list for, I mean, yes, if it's for large ticket items, HVAC systems, textbooks, that sort of thing, I could understand that. But if we're talking about coffee and donuts here, why would there be a requirement to have a bunch of companies jump through hoops in order to be able to provide that?
We have a vendors list for all things large, small, tiny within the Toronto District School Board. We even have a vendor list for pizza slices, Gordon, within the Toronto District School Board. As you know, at local school councils, Pizza is a vendor for the Toronto District School Board. And so that's just procedure. And so the way it works is if there are vendors that are out there that are not, and you know that there are companies that may be interested, what you do is you may interest them in becoming a vendor with the Toronto District School Board, and they may become engaged in the process of becoming a vendor with the TDSB.
Doesn't it create a situation where it favors large corporations or deep-pocketed companies to get on the list? Because it sounds like there's a bit of a process there. Just because something's always been done doesn't necessarily mean there's a good reason for it. So
that's a brilliant conversation for our purchasing department, and PIAC may be interested in having that conversation with them. We may want to bring them to this committee, for this committee to engage in that dialogue with them at a future date, and figure out when we do that.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gordon. We do have arms raised, so there's a call out. So I'll go one by one on it. Who raised first? It was Tanya. Go ahead. And then followed by Eden. Unless somebody else a few of them put their hands up. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. No, my understanding is, because I did inquire about this several years ago and continue to inquire about it as well. But my understanding is like anything else. The vetting process is, especially around food, there's actually a lot more legislation around food than other products, because of food poisoning, food care, food handling, laws, regulations, insurance, all kinds of stuff, food transport. There is all kinds of stuff involving regulation around food. It's actually more strict than a lot of other products, other than bouncy castles, I have heard. So, but yes, there are, on that vendors list, there actually is only one one that is located in Scarborough, and we are looking at that one. We have decided this year that because we are not serving lunch or dinner, because we are not hosting the event around those times, it'll be finger food, vegetarian, so that there are no handling or dietary requirements required to ask of our participants. We're just going to adhere to all dietary requirements and keep it strictly vegetarian, finger foods. So we are, there are some vendors that we have to rule out, like Caribbean jerk chicken, because that just doesn't suit our needs. But there are some options, and we're also looking at vendors that might be listed in a certain location, but might have satellite offices. To answer Gordon's question, yes, it does cater to larger corporations with deeper pockets because of not only the cost of applying to become a vendor, but the insurance that comes along with it as well. But, if the smaller shops can afford to do it, it can be fruitful because that vendor list is quite short, from my understanding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Just to let you guys know, we're very tight on time. So for your question, and we have a lot of hands up. If we can expedite it, it would be greatly appreciated. To the point of it, answered. Eden, you go ahead. And then we have Nicole and then Musa. If you guys
Hi,
can.
I had my hand up before the last comment, but now I'm changing my comment to address the last comment. I find it very interesting that the comment was that jerk chicken is not appropriate. I have just filled out the form. I myself cannot have any vegetarian food, nor can I have vegan food because of the things they usually add to them. And I can have Caribbean food, which is one of the reasons that our school has worked really hard with one of our local Caribbean vendors to try and get them on the vendor list. It did not happen because it is too tedious a process for local businesses. I also have raised this issue over the last 2 years. There is no culturally appropriate food on the vendor list. And if we're talking about food guidelines, as someone in public health, I'm well aware that there are food restriction guidelines around, public health safety. However, to imply that there are no how do I say this, non-European restaurants that could adhere to those guidelines. I feel we should maybe perhaps use an equity lens to reflect on this conversation, to reflect on why the TDSB continues to disregard our voices of our racialized communities, our Muslim communities, when we repeatedly state that pizza is not the best option for pizza for us. Nor do we want pizza for our children. It's not a healthy option, and I would much rather they were being served jerk chicken. And I am quite offended that that comment was so flippantly made to imply that for some reason jerk chicken is not an option. When in fact, for my dietary needs, I can eat jerk chicken, I can eat Indian food, I can eat Ethiopian food. What I cannot eat is European food, which tends not to be cooked, as I cannot digest food that has not been cooked, probably a result of my genetics and hereditary dietary restrictions and allergies. So can we please move somehow to bring this to a working group to address the fact that the TDSB believes that they need to speak this disrespectfully and dismissively to adults of various communities who are well aware of what it takes to run a restaurant and a safe food handling business, and take an equity lens to this issue, because this is a process is just not an appropriate response in 2024 when we're saying we need food that reflects the needs of our culturally diverse 250,000 students across the TDSB. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, Eden. That comment was because it has been decided by the working group that the food prepared, or the food that will be presented at this particular conference, is going to be vegetarian.
I can't eat vegetarian food, so I'm just stating that again. I cannot eat vegetarian food or vegan food because they tend to put nuts, avocados, and other things that they consider healthy fats, all of which I'm allergic to, and I cannot eat anything that is not properly cooked the way that we cook food in Middle Eastern and African and Asian countries. So continuing to go back to this idea of European food, vegetarian food can mean a lot of things. Are you talking about Indian vegetarian food? That's fine. Are we talking about European vegetarian food? So I think we need to be a little bit more thoughtful about these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Eden. we're gonna address that. Thank you very much. Musa, I think you mentioned, is it okay if Nicole goes, or Musa, it's up to you guys? And just
Nicole,
wrap
I
it
can
up.
wait for Nicole.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Musa. Nicole, go ahead, and please let's wrap it out for the time. We still have communication and consulting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I just want to say I'm very excited for the February 1st conference. Myself, before I became a PIAC member, I was actually inspired by the last year, February 2nd PIAC conference, where we engaged with a lot of people. So I think it's a meaningful conference, and I also joined some of the event group working groups. I know they put in a lot of efforts. I just don't know how many guys know that it seems like PIAC conference occurs in February regularly, right? Did you know that like last year, Lunar New Year was in February 10th, and then the conference on February 2nd was already like we already started the New Year celebration, which is again celebrated among not just one or two, but many Asian groups. And this year, Lunar New Year lands on January 29th, and February 1st is actually the first day of the first weekend of many Asian people celebrating with their family member and close relative family members to celebrate that gather together. So I feel like because I shared the good news of PIAC conference, it's coming up, everybody save the date, and people are like, are you kidding me? Because you know you are celebrating Lunar New Year. That is our day. So you want me to go there and drop my kids at home? So that's all their concern, knowing that I meant very nice invitation to save their date. So moving forward, I warmly recommend everybody to put up the calendar that includes more festive traditions of different ethnic groups, especially for Lunar New Year. That is the biggest of many East Asian groups that we're talking about, and we want all of their school members, school council members to be there. Otherwise, for my ward, I know Susan knows, we have a major majority of Southeast Asian, South Asian groups, because that means a lot of them by default will not be available because they want to be with their family members. So I really want to recommend everybody to be mindful, especially if it occurs every February. And now that the motion, actually act just passed that in Ontario, February is proclaimed as Chinese Heritage Month because Lunar New Year is the most significant festival for us to celebrate among family members. I don't think you will now see like a lot of festivity coming up near Scarborough in the same weekend. So I just want to raise awareness for all of you in terms of future event planning, as well as in this conference, what will be addressed and considered for the absence of the community member who will be purposely celebrating their own culture. And the last point is adding to the also ethnic group relevant food. We in our ward has been trying to do work forums and PIAC like gather together. We ask for the food list, and there's nothing related to Lunar New Year where we wanted to include everybody. There's not a thing about not even Chinese, not even Korean, not even anything that is little related. So again, with a larger population, not in one ward, but you can see the total population, I highly recommend the board to consider the variety of food options. Back to that, it's not vegetarian is a default. Like you have to consider all the Asian groups, all the other ethnic groups, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and well noted for sure. And Musa?
Yeah, on the same note, where we have vendors list, yes, true, but that guidelines or that protocol is not being followed by most of the schools, because most of the schools, they order from their local businesses, local pizza stores, subways, and all of that for fundraising by parents. Like my um, kids elementary school, uh, they order Subway sandwiches every other week. They have pizzas from various local pizza stores, not from Pizza or Domino's Pizza, but the local stores, local businesses are being used by the schools and by the parents to do fundraising and feed the kids all of those products in the schools. So I am feeling there is a loss of connection here of what the board has put in place and what is not being followed by the schools themselves. So there is a big disconnect, right? I hope you understand my point, where I'm coming from. And if you could respond to that, please.
You asking somebody to respond, Musa, your question, or is just a statement?
Yeah, I would ask Michelle to kindly respond to that, please.
Here's what I'll say to that. In the new year, we'll ask both of the departments to come to the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee and present on this issue so you can hear from the department themselves. They can speak to the procedure and they're able to respond to your commentary about, I can't speak to what's happening at the local schools or what principals are engaging in at local schools. What we can do is have staff speak to what the expectations are and have them, you can hear directly from them and pose your questions directly to them as to your expectations around what you are asking as it relates to your events and how at the central level, what they expect and ask us to do as departments at the central levels when we are engaging in our related activities. So we can ask both departments to be here to speak to you, and hopefully you'll be able to table these questions to staff directly, and they'll be able to provide you with more direct responses.
Yes, thank you very much, Michelle. The other thing I've noticed is that I've contacted some of the vendors before as well, and I found out that these vendors also do not meet the dietary requirements, which is, I believe, is part of the food supply of TDSB protocol, where and these vendors, they do not meet those dietary requirements, although they claim to supply those products of those dietary requirements, but they do not meet those dietary requirement protocols or needs to fulfill that requirement. So there is a big loophole here, and I think there needs to be more clarification and more restrictions on that, because certain dietary products cannot be made due to cross contamination problems and issues and all that, or lack of understanding of it.
See,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there are varying types of vendors in the board, and I will not be the expert to speak on that because that is not the area that I lead in the district, Musa. So let us bring in the staff who leads that work to come and speak to the committee on that. And what I will aim to do is extend the invitation before we leave for break with the hope that they'll be able, if you allow it, that they'll be able to be on your agenda for January. We have our fundraising vendors, we have our nutrition vendors. They're all varying types of vendors within the district. And so we'll see which ones are the appropriate ones if you allow it to bring the presentation to you for January.
I appreciate your understanding and approach to this, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Let's move forward. We're really tight on time for communication working group. Co-leads, if you can go ahead.
Hi, Seema Mitchell here, Ward 18. We just submitted our report, and that's the update for us. Thank you.
Anybody has any questions, comments?
No, but that's got to be a record. Way to go, Seema.
Yeah, this is what we like, guys. This is what we expect. No, I'm just okay.
Under the weather.
Like Anybody has any question for communication working group? No? Thank you, Seema and Coley. Consultation working group?
Yeah, hi, this is Susan Lee, Ward 12. I'm the co-lead for Consultations Working Group. Currently, we have no other co-lead, so if anyone is interested, and we would love to have more people join our Consultations Working Group. Our objective or description is that the Consultations Working Group was formed to prioritize, summarize, and disseminate information to PIAC, and where applicable, the TDSB parent community regarding policies and procedures under review by the TDSB. Dissemination of information will be coordinated with PIAC ward representatives and the Communication and Outreach Working Group. Where applicable, the Consultations Working Group, along with all PIAC members, will coordinate, review, and or provide feedback and or make recommendations regarding review and revision of TDSB policies and procedures to the PIAC co-chairs. So that's our description and objective. I'm sorry, I don't have a written report. I will try and get that out as soon as possible. I did email all of you because I thought that the personal mobile device use in schools policy was the deadline was December 10th, but I found out during our exec meeting that it has been moved back to December 20th of 2024. So if you all are able to review the new draft policy and then put in your or provide your feedback, that would be great. And so that's really all we have done thus far. There was only one question that I had for the operational effectiveness for bylaw review. Not sure if you brought this up or spoke on this, but can a community member of a non-governance working group be allowed to sit in a co-lead position so long as the other co-lead is a PIAC rep and there are no other PIAC reps willing to take on that position?
So is this operational?
It's a question for operational effectiveness, I guess.
Or membership manual?
Or membership? I'm not sure.
Andrew or Kadeen, Reem?
Currently, as the bylaws are written, only PIAC co-representatives or CLG can operate as the co-lead of a non-governance working group. I think that's definitely something that could be explored to open that up a little bit.
Okay. And so there are a number of policies that are up for review or currently under review, not open to public yet. But if you, I will put in my written report, just what is scheduled to be under review, and if we can look at it. And then my question back to, and I think it was addressed during the executive meeting, but I'd like to just bring it up once again. Question back to either Michelle Monroe or to Trustee Mateus or any of the board staff. Is there someone that we can be in touch with to speak about upcoming policies and consultations that we can just be a little bit more proactive on it rather than hear about it last minute or us going around and trying to find it on the website?
Thank you, Susan. You're asking for the Matthias, and I know we have Alice, our hands up, which probably ties into the consultation working group, Susan. And even for former co-lead of consultation, that was one of the biggest things that we requested is before policy procedure to go through the consultation working group of PIAC before we hear it outside so that we are aware of it. So it's very, very good question. Maybe Michelle, Matthias, if you guys want to answer, and then I'll give it to Allison who has her hands up.
I would be able to jump in, but I would be more comfortable, if staff spoke to this as well. This is not an operational question. This is an operational question as opposed to a policy question. So we approve things and that's the last we see of it, and then it goes through a pipeline and it gets to folks. So maybe staff can speak to it. What I would like to add to the conversation is, when there are future policy conversations, I'll try and keep a list and bring it to the space, because I know that we don't always get the emails or see the other things that's floating around. And made a note of about that at the last executive meeting, so I'll try and do that. But it shouldn't sort of rely on me doing that. There should be some systemic element where we can bring this forward in a more efficient manner.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Jack, you want to answer that question for Suzanne? Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thanks. In my upcoming short presentation on the mobile device policy, I will be showing you how to get to the policy consultations webpage. It is updated regularly and very current. So I'll be showing the whole group and everyone watching online how to get to that page and access the feedback forms for each policy review that's currently happening. So I hope that's helpful, but Michelle may have some other guidance for us on this. Okay. So I'll get to that and show you, I'll take you through how to get to that page so that everyone has access to it.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. We'll come on your staff reporting. Thank you. Alice, go ahead. You have your hands up for that. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. So someone had just said that whatever I was saying in the chat, if I wanted to talk about it in the meeting, there's already some discussion in the chat and Matthias actually clarified it, but I can just restate it. So I have put a question. I'll try and just do it really quickly so we don't spend so much time. I just asked about a motion, I guess it was a private motion, that was passed in Ontario legislation by an MPP. It was put forward to encourage boards to bring back police in schools. Some boards call them school resource officers. Some of them call them community liaison officers, different names for them. But they're essentially police officers that are stationed at secondary schools and they patrol the hallways and they're uniformed. So TDSB has voted them out in 2017. They did a full review. And the trustees voted them out. And so when it was passed, I received, I guess, well, just for full transparency, I was one of the parents that was also involved in this, probably as Matthias knows. And so I have like a direct kind of, I guess, yes, I'm directly, I guess, affected by it as well. And so I was contacted by many parents, by many community folks when the motion passed because it was so publicized, like it was covered on CBC. And so now I'm hearing that it's not legally binding, that it's just a private. So I don't know what it means. So I guess I was just wondering, you know, it's not coming out of nowhere. There's like I literally got messages everywhere, emails, even an email from a professor. So it's definitely not, I think everybody is worried about it, or not everyone, but folks that were involved at least at some point are worried about it. So just wanting to know what that means, if it seems like it doesn't mean anything necessarily. So anyways, that was the question. And it looks like Matthias is looking into it. And I'm also looking into what a private motion means and looking into like what that means when it's voted in favor and stuff. So yeah, that was it. Thank you. Sorry if that was too long.
No, that was very good, Alice. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Anybody wants? Yeah, Mattia, go ahead. Your hands behind.
Thank you, through the chair. To my understanding, it is a private member's motion, which is different than a private member's bill. Private member's bill can be enacted as law, and just as any bill that goes through a process becomes law, it's law. Private member's motion can be to support a cultural heritage day. It could be a number of different things, but it doesn't have spending power, for example, and things of that nature. So this is in direction from the Ministry of Education for school boards to do A, B, and C. This was moral support. That's my understanding. A quick reading, looking at things and sending a couple of text messages to a couple of people. Don't know more about it, but I'm going to touch base with staff and bring back information if I'm able to find it. Okay.
Thanks, Matthias.
Thank you. And as we said, we are at number 7, staff reporting. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. Good to see everyone. This part of the meeting is going to focus on a
a policy consultation. We are currently working on the mobile device policy. So one of the first things that I wanted to show you by sharing my screen is, let's see if I can share this, how to get to the policy consultation page. So can everyone see my screen? Can somebody say yes? Sarah,
Yes.
can you? Yes, you
Yes,
can.
yes,
Thank you.
we can, yes.
So if you you'll see this window here, but right next to it on the web page is About Us. So if you go to the let's start from the home page. So on About Us, you get a side menu on the About Us screen that brings you to policies and procedures. And then halfway down the page, you will see the policy consultations link. And this is where you can find all of the policy consultations that are happening at any time that are live throughout the board. And so the mobile device use in schools policy is currently being consulted. It's in phase 5. And I'll just pull it up and guide you through it. Now, I want to give you a little bit of background. This is a rather unusual policy because, first of all, the request for this policy came by resolution by the Board of Trustees on January 31st of this year. Later, in April, the ministry actually released a policy and program memorandum, which is policy advice for school boards and and that school boards have to comply with and implement on mobile device use in schools. And so these two things happen together. And the way we approach this policy development is different than others. In most other cases, we start with a draft and then consult on a draft. For this one, we had a phase between January 31st and June 30th where we had a pre-consultation. A pre-consultation is without a draft policy. So we went to different groups, had an open process where we asked people to tell us about things that should be in this mobile device policy, cautions, things to think about, etc. So that pre-consultation phase happened between January 31st and June 30th. Within that time, the ministry actually released this policy and program memorandum that boards were made to comply with by September 1st. So a little different trajectory for this policy development. We received 22,000 submissions to inform our policy between January 31st and June 30th. And so over the summer, our policy development team developed this draft policy. At the same time in September, starting September 1st, we started implementing PPM 128, which was amended to provide some direction on restrictions in the use of mobile devices in our schools. So from the middle of October to now Friday of this week, we have been accepting submissions as feedback to this policy. And so I want to outline the policy with you and show you the different components. We have, first of all, definitions that are pretty standard in every policy. The responsibility, who bears responsibility for this, application and scope, and then we get into the policy principles We mentioned TDSB Student Device Program and how that operates. Then we begin talking about the restrictions. So already we have restricted more than a dozen social media sites on on the TDSB internet system. In other words, our Wi-Fi in our schools restricts access to over a dozen social media platforms. And that list is dynamic in the sense that as new social media platforms develop, or we learn about others, or things morph into social media websites, we have the opportunity to restrict access to them in our schools. And then we get into the use of personal mobile devices and who is subject to these restrictions. In all of these restrictions, every member of the school community is implicated in this policy. In other words, all members of the school community experience these restrictions. And you can see exceptions here for the use of mobile devices. In other words, notwithstanding the restrictions, we allow personal mobile devices during instructional times for educational purposes, for health and medical purposes, and to support special education needs. So now when we get to student restrictions, the policy that matches actually the PPM says that students in grade 6 and below are required to not have their personal mobile devices for the full instructional day. And students in grades 7 to 12 are required to store their personal devices during instructional time. So the difference is that in grades 7 to 12, students have access to them in periods of non-instructional time. That would be at breaks or during the lunch hour. So again, it outlines the restrictions for school staff. It mentions the duty to accommodate. And then it speaks to emergency situations where we already have, for example, during lockdown, restrictions on the use of mobile devices. And that section 6.63 outlines potential for students to use their personal mobile devices to contact parents, guardians, and caregivers after notifying an educator or designated school staff. So there are restrictions, there are some considerations for emergency use, etc. In terms of enforcement and compliance, if there is a contravention of the rules associated with this, students would be expected to hand in their personal mobile devices or face progressive discipline. And that means that, that could be a warning the first time and get progressively more in terms of a consequence up to and including suspension in 6.7.6. There is a little bit of guidance on personal mobile device storage, and that really has looked like local solutions in terms of how these devices are stored, and then also privacy considerations in terms of things like sharing audio video recordings, taking photos, etc. Then the training aspect behind it, we've already undertaken significant, communication with system and parents about this, especially in September and October. So this is the policy draft that you are invited either as a committee to make a submission with input, or if you go back to the web page, there is a link to, just a minute. Oh, it's covered in my agenda bar, but if you go back to the web page, there is a link that takes you to a form that you can fill out to add your input to the policy consultation. So, and just to give you an update on how things have gone so far, I was actually at a school in Trustee Hassan's ward, Portage Trail, yesterday. And I asked specifically about how the mobile device policy is working at Portage Trail. Portage Trail, they actually decided as a community to extend the restriction, it being a K-8 school, all the way to grade 8. And so once again, a policy outlines minimum compliance standards, which in this case is K-6, but locally you can make decisions to extend the restrictions up to grade 8 if you wish as an elementary school. That is a local decision. Everyone must comply with the K-6 restriction, but some schools have extended it beyond the K-6. And some of the other comments made by the admin team at Portage Trail is that students were paying better attention in class, that they were actually playing outside during recess and the lunch hour, as opposed to on their phones. And that was said in very positive ways in terms of building relationships with each other and being active at break times in school. And it also curbed on other issues around online situations that caused problems, that caused conflict between students. Whereas that was an issue in the past, this year it's not an issue at all. So one school at least has seen very positive impacts. I can tell you that the instances of discipline in terms of, on the other end of the progressive discipline scale have been very, very few. And so up until now, the impacts of the current PPM have been very, very positive, we think, but we will continue to learn as we go. And so I hope that is helpful in terms of, first of all, finding where policies are that are being consulted on the TDSB website, and a little bit of an introduction to the mobile device policy and your opportunities to contribute to it. Thank you very much, Chair. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. We do have a few hands up. And Andrew first, and then Susan Lee from Ward 12. Andrew, Ward 3.
Hello, thank you. I appreciate the comments you've made on the mobile device. I have a question. It was sort of brought to my attention in the last couple of days. My understanding is Rolliston's Community School Council is being disbanded by board senior staff. And I guess I understand there's some conflict going on there between different parents and different parent groups. But from my understanding, and again, I haven't been able to speak to everyone involved, but that like taking the approach of disbanding the school council, I don't know how that's going to solve the issues of conflict that are occurring where, speaking to Regulation 612, there are conflict conflict resolution in place. They have bylaws to support that. I just am very concerned that the board staff are taking an approach, and I quite actually question what authority that board staff have to be able to disband a council that's already sat for a number of meetings. I understand we're already at 9:30, so it's very tight time, and I actually would have preferred to spend a little bit more time on this, but I just wanted to sort of raise this, and I will be putting a series of questions in the chat that I think PIAC, and hopefully we can maybe do this at the school support working group, can try to understand why this very intrusive action has needed to be taken Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to respond to the question and provide a little bit of background, and then come back to it at another time if it's appropriate. I'm happy to do that now, or take questions about the mobile device policy and then go to that, whatever you think is best.
Fair enough. Let's hold it out. I just want to ask you guys, it would be great for you to answer that question, but if there's any mobile question, I think Susan may have it, but also I want to ask the members, because we are running on time, it's past our time. If the motion to extend the meeting just in case for 15 minutes, if everybody's okay with it, can somebody second it?
I'll second that.
Yeah, because I know that there was more passion. There's a lot of more concern we had this time around. And we want to make sure that everybody's questions, concerns are put forward. If we can just give it to Gordon, he will answer, Andrews, your question. But if we can answer the phone question, I guess, Susan, go ahead for more 12.
Yeah, hi. More than a question, I know that TDSB and several other school boards are suing like the big social media groups. I'm just wondering where you are at that, and then also would love to recommend a book for everyone to read called Stolen Focus. And that book actually points out why social media and the harmful effects of it on our adolescent children, and just children in general. And so it would be good if they had seen if the board is kind of showing that to parents and doing more kind of informative sessions, not just this policy, but to explain why social media use and the effects of social media use. Because I find that certain schools will do it, but not the board across wide. And maybe it would be better if the board across like just did it as a information session for all parents, for all schools, and how the cell phone use is destructive, and then show data as to what is happening with schools that have now put the cell phones aside and how that has contributed. So if everyone can see the positive in it, then wouldn't it be an easier place for all students and community?
So just to clarify, are you advocating for some learning sessions about the content of the book? Can you just clarify?
Well, no, not the book. I'm just recommending the book for board staff to read, and just because I think there are so many important points in that book, but also just for like, I noticed that like in certain schools where they have good fundraising or they have good support, they're able to bring in these big speakers who cost like a few $1,000s. I can't remember the one guy's name. But this is not so for all schools, right? They all just don't have that kind of funding where they can bring in these speakers who talk about social media and the effects of, cell phone use and all these things. It would be great if we could just do it like just across the whole board, or have a speaker go to all of the schools rather, or like families of schools or something like that, rather than just doing it for schools that can afford to bring in a speaker. That's my recommendation.
Thank you.
So that was more to comment. Azim, Ward 21, if it's regarding to the phone for chat, go ahead.
Yes, it is regarding the phone. Thank you, Chair. I have two questions on that. The one is it at the discretion of the principal, or is it at the discretion of the teacher who's taking the class that the use of a cell phone can be allowed or disallowed? And the second thing is that if at all, in case of a confiscation, suppose a teacher is very strict and they say that if I see a phone ringing or hear a phone ringing or see someone using a phone, I will confiscate it. So will that be a permanent confiscation, or will that be like given back after the class is over, or is it going to be handed over to the principal? Are there any rulings in that? Because I know that there are going to be so many issues regarding this.
So
Thank you.
first of all, this is a matter of teacher enforcement as well in classrooms. And so when something happens in a classroom, the teacher decides, what the consequence is. It could be, please put your phone away. After repeated instances, it could be more than that. The principal can be involved at one point in this. The parent could be called at one point in this. We have advised that teachers not touch phones, that they ask students to put them in a storage area when infractions happen. So yes, parents could be called to speak about the infraction. And so different schools handle it in different ways. And so it's best to just perhaps talk to individual principals about direction that they have provided staff that falls in line with the policy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else? I think we have also Elizabeth Adu, if you want to add anything.
Thank you very much. No, I think that response was fulsome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth. We go into our next item, and that is item 8, PCCO report. Michelle?
Through you, Chair, I'm looking at the time. It's almost 10. So if it's good with the committee, I have a slide deck that I'm more than willing to share with the PIAC reps. And if they have any questions for me, they could just indirectly direct it to me, and I'm more than willing to answer any questions for them, if that's all right with you.
Yes, yeah. I think, is everybody okay with that? Since we're running out of time.
Yes,
And,
sorry, point of
Andrew,
order.
I will come back to you. Yes, I didn't forget.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't. I did not, as a coach. Like, you can check. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. If you can go ahead. Anybody has a question for Michelle before we go back to Jack and in regarding to Andrew's question?
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Michelle. Yeah, Jack.
Through you,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair. So the situation at Rawlinson was an unfortunate situation. It was a situation that we wouldn't have hoped to be in. But at the beginning of the year, when the school council election process began, an incorrect version of the bylaws were sent out around the election. When it came to the night of the election, the proper bylaws.
Through you, Chair, I'm not sure how appropriate it is for us to be having this type of conversation here about a particular school-related incident at a large PIAC meeting. And while a PIAC rep may have this type of question, I'm wondering if this is something we may take offline, because I'm not sure the Rawlinson PIAC community would want us to be recording this in this open space in this way. And so I am going to ask that we not have this large conversation here in this meeting at this particular time in this way. But if there are particular questions that individual reps may have, that we may take this offline and have the conversation at that time.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So, Andrew, so the question is in regard, have the school reached out? Because usually what they do is they may reach out to the school council working group and then bring it forward with the PIAC. Have they reached out?
So members of the school council have reached out. We can take this offline, but I just want to, the reason why I've brought this forward is, again, disbanding a council and then having new elections halfway through the year, no matter what school council is an extreme step. And I hope that, and if we believe that this is going to create an ability for that community to come together, I really don't think that's the case. I think other measures such as mediation and those key pieces would be a better better remedies. And so I will leave it to board staff. But again, I've never heard of school councils being disbanded. So it is very concerning. Thank you.
Through your chair, and I think language is appropriate as well, because I don't believe the board has in any way disbanded a council. We have not engaged in that process, and I do believe that it's important that we are clear as to what the process has been and what has taken place. So I do want to put it on record that the board has not in any way disbanded Rawlinson School Council. Rawlinson School Council is operating. I just want to put that on record, and that we're more than willing to engage in a dialogue with PIAC School Council Working Group off this meeting to clarify what has taken place and the way it has taken place. And just to say to PIAC reps that if a council has brought something to you that you want clarification on, I do recommend that we bring those to the working group where we can walk that through, and that we not bring school council related concerns to these larger spaces. I don't believe school council would want these issues be recorded publicly and posted in this public way without their consent, without all of the parents and caregivers' consent in being sure that their issues are being recorded and posted in this way. So let us have these conversations off record where we can ensure that we're having the right dialogues in the right way. I'll turn it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if Andrew can thank you for that clarification, and thanks for everybody. In regards to, we do have working group, and I just want to make sure that we're very clear. At the end of the day, we do represent the parents and the school council, and maybe moving forward, even of myself and speaking with the co-chair and Zena, is to actually have a place at format where school council's concern can be brought up to the PIAC level, not just only on the working group, with the consent of the school council, because changes will happen when there's accountability and transparency. And I do believe that's very important, and that would help out how we can navigate and support the school councils. So again, thank you, Andrew, for bringing that up. But if you can, again, get that, and maybe, because if I remember the PIAC general meeting, it is open to the public and is open to the school council who have concern to attend PIAC meeting and take part of it and bring it forward through their wards. With that said, thank you for that. Let's go on to the agenda. Anybody else have any questions? We are going to ward update. Yeah, Susan has her hands up. Susan, ward 2.
Yeah, this is not actually a ward update, but it was something that was going on within the school board itself. So our school was reached out to by board staff, where they were working on holiday hampers for families in need. And I thought this was a great initiative. I heard that they had helped out 167 families in need, where they were identified through school admin or through different staff. But I thought my only regret is that it was just presented to us so late that I couldn't bring it up to PIAC because it's an already finished thing. But it would have been nice if PIAC had also known about this, and that everyone in our wards could have participated and maybe even identified more families in need, or if everyone could have participated in supporting families that maybe just need that extra hand or anything like that. So if there is anything from board like these kind of initiatives, it would be great to just let us know ahead of time so we can bring it up to PIAC, and PIAC ward reps can also send it out to their school and school communities.
Thank you, Susan. That's definitely part of the communications that we want to work on it. Thank you. Anybody else? Ward update? Oh, item 10, CLG update. Anybody from CLG? No, it's going smoothly. 11, new business. No? Any other final questions? Then so we can wrap it up. It's 9:47. I think that's it, guys. Zena, you want to say anything else? Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I hope it went smooth. I heard everybody's concern. I hope everybody got the chance for everyone's their concerns and so on. Might be a few changes, but thank you, Zena, as a new co-chair. It's not easy. I'm not gonna lie. The timing. I'm more of a time period person, getting to the point. You guys will know me with that. But thank you for the staff, TDSP staff. Zena, I'll give it back to you, the mic.
So Sarah, thank you actually very much for taking on and jumping in tonight, as well as you did. So thank you. Looking forward again to working with you. Congratulations. And again, I want to thank Trustee Williams for being here tonight with us, as well as our staff who are here, as well as Trustee DeVitas. I'd like to wish everybody a happy, safe, restful holiday, or what you choose to do with your time, with your families and loved ones, as well. I think we're doing okay. So I'm not going to prolong this anymore because it's time. It's voices. We've all been heard. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and wonderful holidays.
Thank you. Good night. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, everyone. See you in 2025.
Merry Christmas, guys. Happy holiday.
Thank you.
Thank God. Happy holidays, everyone. Good night.